What's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to today's market analysis or trade recap session. Today is June the 4th, 2025, which is Wednesday. And we took one trade today and we did happen to get stopped out, but we did find another occasion of clear absorption that we potentially could have got a good setup in, which I did have marked out as per that red circle right there. But as per the main trade that we made today, we unfortunately had gotten stopped out, but our risk was minimal on this. We were only risking 11 ticks, but the risk to reward was also quite low as well. It was only 1.5 approximately. So let's get into the overall context of the day and also take a look at what were the factors that made us actually take this trade. And before that, I do want to say that today we did have multiple news events. As you can see, we did have ADP non-farm employment change. We had ISM services PMI, and we had BOC press conference alongside crude oil inventories. And this came out as breaking news. I'm pretty sure this also came out as breaking news. And this also came out as breaking news as well. So today was pretty news heavy in terms of the releases, and we'll talk about why this trade here at 9:30 a.m. was a major factor of our trade not playing out as we wanted it to, potentially. We don't know guaranteed, but that is going to be definitely a factor in which the trade could have been prevented, which we'll get into when we're explaining the trade. So let's go into the overall context of ES during that time, and we'll go check out NQ after. But taking a look at ES, similarly as how we saw our predictable outcomes in the previous days, we essentially saw ES break above this high volume area here. We saw us go up above it, retrace back into it, where we saw bullish action again. And what I noticed is that essentially we stayed around this area, but we were unable to get to that higher volume node above. So my bias was bullish, hoping that we get into this higher volume area above. And that was the reasoning behind my bullish bias. We did have some opposing barriers, as you may be able to see on the 1 hour, I believe, or I think that was on NQ, but there were some opposing barriers that did make it a little bit difficult to maintain that upwards basis and bias. As you can see, there potentially could have been a 30-minute there, which did get broken pretty nicely yesterday as well. So on ES, no zones, but on NQ, I'm pretty sure there were. But overall, bullish bias simply because of that relative context, which I mentioned. And I can show you guys that context as well if that would help. As you can see, let's mark out the relative range first. As you can see, in the relative time, volume has been transacting around this area heavily. And that one day we broke above, retraced back into it, started pushing up to the next volume area. And if we extend our volume profile until there, we see that, I think you have to extend it a bit more. But what we see is that this area right here is another high volume node, as you can see right here, which does align pretty nicely with that 4 hour. And because of that, and since we broke out of this area, we expected to simply go towards the next level, which, I mean, we did do today, but unfortunately we were not able to reap the rewards of that move. And overall, the context is essentially the same on NQ as well. As you can see here, same overall thing. We see breakage above this volume area, retracement back into it, push up. Now there was a 30-minute supply zone here that we did break out of, but we came back into that level. So potentially that could have been considered an area of support, helping us provide an answer to continue the market to move higher. But that's essentially what I saw. We saw that happening. And alongside that as well, what we saw right around market open was a sweep of lower liquidity. And we saw the same thing here on NQ as well. we saw a first sweep of liquidity followed by the up move, and then the second one. The first sweep of liquidity, this right here, is because of that ADP non-farm employment change, which made the market come down, take out this liquidity, move up. Second one, we had that 8:45 or 9 a.m. news that moved the market down, and which we swept it once again. And same context applies to ES. But yeah. So now that we've overviewed the overall context for setting up the day and the overall day in general, let's talk about what happened post market open and see if there were any setups that we potentially missed out on and any area and any further invalidations for this trade. But let's dive straight into that. And how we're going to go through this is we're going to be analyzing it essentially candle by candle in a chronological basis using footprint charts as seen here alongside Bookmap charts here as well, because it's a great tool and Orderflow gives you an edge in the market unlike anything else before. And you can take advantage of Bookmap live streams like this by taking advantage of YouTube live stream by Think with Bookmap or Live Alex TWB. And you can also take advantage of these footprint charts to get started practicing, because this actually shows you different levels of absorption and aggression within the market in real time. And you can start practicing on this with the 15-minute delay using the Addis link in the description down below as well. Addis charts also a great platform, very simple to use compared to other platforms. But essentially you can start getting practice on this for completely free, even if that means a 15-minute delay, because you can start backtesting and analyzing with that 15-minute delay, where in other platforms you may not be able to. And when you're ready to pay, you can pay upon your own discretion. As always, no financial advice. But definitely these two are great tools to definitely check out. And that's what we're going to be using today to analyze different action within the market. And we'll be combining that with our charts as well in order to make the best analysis. So just by looking at Bookmap here, we see right around market open, price started to head up, but previously at that 7:20-ish time here, we went below, took out this liquidity. So I do want to see what happened there at 7:20, because that may help us build context into how position of liquidity is. So let's go ahead and check on that as well. The 8:20 here. Yeah, I mean, it looks like we just went into random spot and then came back, unless there was clear absorption or anything there. And I'll look for clear absorption as well on footprint, because that may be much easier to identify. I mean, nothing too crazy there, as this was a gradual move up as compared to this, the wick up with that aggression. Here we can likely see absorption potentially. And as we can see, all these sellers down at these lows as they're wicking up had gotten absorbed. But this is in itself a very aggressive selling candle as well. But that doesn't really build us too much context. It just shows us that we swept lower liquidity. Now, from here, after market open, we head up towards this very, very key level and psychological level as well. We head up straight towards the 6,000 level. And at the 6,000 level, we have 202 contracts, passive sell orders just sitting there and waiting. All in this time, we have that 8:45 news. So we are going to be in that news interval from 8:45 to 9-ish. And since there's news at 9 as well, we cannot actually place a trade until 9:05 afterwards. So just looking at how this is going, there would not have been any setup anyways, unless we had seen something very key up near these highs, which I mean, on footprint, you can see clear signs of absorption. As you can see, high volume, green delta, high volume, high green delta right at the top, high volume, high green delta, and then high volume throughout the candle, high red delta can actually break through when this cannot break through. And then here is just a reversal candles, but as you can see, as we're coming up, sellers are defending that area actively now, and then sellers had come in, but all within the news interval, so we would not have taken a trade. That just builds further context. As you can see now, we come down with strength, come to around this 5975 levels, where we start to reverse. And again, not really clear absorption, as I would say. Looking in hindsight, there is absorption there simply because of that wick, but what we like to determine as clear absorption would be something like this or this. We see clear buying delta near the highs, where there is passive liquidity here on Bookmap that supports that ideology that buyers may be getting absorbed. Now, as we keep moving forward, let's just take a look. We did mark out a seller fair value gap that we tapped into at 915, but there was no reason for us to actually reject off of there, because if you look on Bookmap, there's nothing really there on the bottom side that price would actually want to target. So we're playing a dangerous game as well, taking a shorts, because we have no clear target on Bookmap. But as you can see, we come up, touch this further resistance to move the price upwards, which was decently significant. We did have 181 orders right at that point, right around 930 or 927-ish. Right there, 927, which let's check on Bookmap. And as you can see, we did see some type of seller absorption here as well. Just taking a look at how all of this looks. 920, 920. So those candles do look a bit different. That's going to be around 920 would be right in the middle. 925 would be that quarter. Yeah, so we did see decent seller absorption here at the bottom, but no barrier to actually support it. Now we're coming up and there's a resistance barrier, so no setup there as well. At that area, at that time, we do see heavy amount of buyer orders coming in, but we do happen to break through it pretty easily, as you can see in real time. Now, from this point, what I noticed happening was that, look at what's happening here. We start to form this barrier of 88 contracts here as determined by the heat map, right? And I noticed this and I'm already thinking, wow, maybe this can set up a similar trade like we did yesterday, where there's a target above and we can easily take a retracement going to target up near that target, right? But unfortunately, was that really a good idea here today? As you can see, it was not. Another thing that was not good about this trade is we overemphasized the significance of this barrier. Take a look at everything recent. We have 72, 79. This is only 88. It's only 10 contracts more. It's nothing significant for us to actually base a entry off of, and that's one of the reasons that it did not play out. Additionally, if you take a look at the time during this time, which kind of sounds weird, but if you take a look at the time, what was happening during that time? We had news that was supposed to come out right around 9:30, which is crude oil inventories. We entered right when we saw this little smidge of reaction right here, but that was within that news interval that we were not supposed to trade, because who knows what the news may account for. And as it turns out, the news was a breaking release. If that would affect ES is uncertain, but it did affect oil futures. But another thing that we saw here was that buyers kept trying to come in, break above these highs, but they were unable to, as you can clearly see here in this footprint candle. Even in this candle, we see buyers come in, but you see it, you just, in this candle at least, you see a lot of buyers here at the top. The next candle, this should have been a clear invalidation candle, and the reason for that is simply because look at where most of the volume is being transacted in the candle. It's towards the upper half, and look at the majority of participants in the upper half. What do we see? We see that buyers were the main participants of the upper half. Now, in that candle per se, what we see is that what we see was that buyer absorption happening, and since that buyer absorption was happening, we likely could have found an entry down there, which means that we would have only taken 2 ticks of loss instead of 11, which would have essentially put us break even, but we did not notice this invalidation signal and did not get up, holding it until our stop loss, which was under the barrier around 5992, I believe. Yep, 5992.25, exactly that number there. And because of that, trade did not play out. We're seeing clear buyer absorption here at these highs. Now, buyer absorption is a good signal of passive sellers within the market, but for us at least, you cannot clearly see passive absorption here on Bookmap. Potentially live and active limit orders are getting placed in the moment that are getting executed that allowed this to happen. If buyers are getting in so aggressively near these highs but are unable to push through, why is price not pushing through? We should ask ourselves that. And when we see the candle close like this with heavy buyer absorption near the top with the majority of the volume, that's honestly clear buyer absorption. And we've seen it before as well up here in that same relative area, clear buyer absorption. We see it again now. That should have been a clear indicator to exit because buyers are not coming in to head into that 6,000-ish areas. So now we're providing an area for potentially a reversal play. And as you can see, that reversal play does happen to play out. We see price start to head down. We come back up into a passive selling barrier. At that passive selling barrier here at 1049 right here, what do we see happening? We see large amounts of volume near the top, large amounts of buying delta, large amounts of selling delta as well. This shows us that sellers and buyers were active at this area, and at the top lots of buyers were present, and active sellers also came in the ride to help push the price downwards, which in turn allowed price to come down again. But as we can see, now there's seller absorption at the bottom. As you can see here, we saw clear sellers were unable to break through this relative area once. Now they're struggling to break through that area again, as you can see here and here. And now buyers are starting to come in, as demonstrated by this big wick you're seeing right here. That is a clear sign of seller absorption, which is bullish. And we would not have taken shorts there anyway, simply because there's no barrier in target towards the downside with significance. So that's essentially going to be the live analysis until 9:55, until there. But if you keep going, we can tell more. But essentially, the overall reasoning for this trade not playing out, even though the biases were good, that being that we saw retracement into a barrier expecting to head up into the target, was because we were seeing invalidation signals that buyers were getting absorbed near the top, alongside the fact that there was news and we were inside the news interval as well. Additionally, the barrier that we were basing our trade off of was not a significant barrier at all, and we should not have based an entry off of that particular barrier. And if we were to take a reversal play from that, similar thing would have happened where there's no target towards the downside. So you do not take a reversal play. Now from here, As you can see, we head on up once again, and from this point right around 10:03, this candle is a very aggressive buying candle, and at the bottom of this candle you see large amounts of volume filled with a decent amount of selling delta and buying delta, but then you see this breakthrough with heavy aggressive buying as demonstrated by all this buying delta you're seeing here, which marked as an imbalance. Then you see price start to rebalance around that area, and then price starts to spike up once again within this candle itself, and then price pushes up once again. Again, no setups throughout any of this. And then here we're finally back to that area. Now who knows, this might be the time where we head up in and finally take out this liquidity, or we reject from that area once again. And keep in mind that 6,000 is a very key psychological level as well. It's not just a Bookmap liquidity, it's also a very, very key psychological level. And as we see here, we do happen to reverse once again from there. And this time, you honestly can more clearly identify this because you get into that with strength. Look at the volume we're seeing on this candle. Heavy buying delta here. We see heavy buying delta here as well. But then the seller closed very bearish with heavy volume of seller activity. That is a signal that sellers may enter, and shorts came in. But no shorts to be taken simply because there are no targets here at the bottom for price to actually head towards. And that happens until 10:25 even. And there's honestly no setup throughout any of that. Now, what I do notice is, and what I did mark out, was that if we take a look at 10:50, I believe it was, yep, 10:50, which would be this candle right here, what we see is, we see that heavy spike of selling coming first. We do not completely know that that was going to happen, but right here, I believe, 10:54, yeah, right there. What we see happening here is that buyers are trying to come in, buyers coming in with heavy strength into the market, and you can, this is the most clear absorption of the day. Just take a look at what's going on here. Right at the top of this candle, you're seeing lots of buyer delta at the top with a decent amount of volume here as well. 700 on a 730 volume price level, we had the most buyer delta, which is pretty significant. And even at a high area of volume in that candle, we also had buying delta. But important thing is that the buying delta was happening near the top of that candle, and that indicated that there's likely buyer absorption simply because the candle could not break through those highs and sellers came in the next candle. That confirmation that we're getting with the sellers coming in is a good idea that shorts are going to continue. And I would have loved to take a trade like that here today, in which we took shorts off of clear reaction to absorption, potentially getting an entry around here as that's engulfing, placing stop above there, above that absorption by potentially 1 or 2 ticks. We can keep it at 993. And then where do we target? We would likely target somewhere below where we see invalidation, but because there's no target below, we would have not taken that trade as well. But I honestly would have loved to take that trade. Potentially we might have been able to take this trade if we targeted 5980, because 5980 doesn't seem to be a bad level as it does have 124 contracts. So 5980, ooh, this would have been a very, very good setup right here. If you take a look, we do have a target down here at 5980. And now shorts have come in with clear signs of absorption. Now, sellers are coming in, Buyers may not, like, we've tested this area multiple times before. It's a psychological level, providing even more significance towards that level. And we've tested it a few times, but buyers are unable to break through, and they keep getting absorbed even at this area right here. Even when you're not close to that target, you are still getting absorbed, as you can see here. And because of that context, the shorts would have been reasonable. Coupled with the fact that you do see a decent target here at 5980, that could have definitely been an area to target taking the shorts. And if you did do that like such, placing, underestimating the level, putting it one tick above, that's a 1.4 risk to reward trade with decent confluences and actual context built around it. And as you can see, we go down straight to it. As we zoom into Bookmap, we see a variety of different levels start to build up around this area. You see 5982, but you see this more significant 5980, and we break through that level and head straight towards 5980 and take it out. This would have been a very, very good setup that we could have taken potentially today, but it was outside of our actual trading time, and we need to be able to put the whole context together with high effort in order to capture such trade like this. If there was a more clear barrier at that point, that would have been an A+ setup, and if that 5980 liquidity was more significant, would have been an even more perfect setup. But as it is here, because of the context of the market of today, it would have made sense. So the best trade that we likely could have made here today would have been at 940 or 1040, yeah, with a 1 to 4 risk to reward trade, capturing around 28 ticks with a 20 ticks that we're risking. But yeah, that's going to be the best trade that we could have made today. The trade that we did made failed for all the reasons that we discussed earlier. And today we not only discussed the overall context of the market that led into the day, we also discussed the live chronological events and analyzed all of it here today in the New York market session. And we talked about different factors regarding this trade as well. And we also made a great setup with clear absorption using the context of the entire market. And yeah, that's the overall conclusion of what we did today. If you have any questions, I highly recommend you guys to join the Discord server in the link in the description down below. Everything is completely free, and you may gain a thing or two out of it. Additionally, if you want to take advantage of tools like this beautiful footprint chart and Bookmap, all for completely free, that will also be in the link in the description down below. Highly recommend you guys to check it out as well. You can also leave a comment down below if you have any questions. I'll be sure to answer them there as well. Now, that's all I have here for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the next market analysis or trade recap episode. And I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.